Good morning. Welcome to Higher Moment Mastermind. I'm Sheila Lotzer, happy to be your co-host today, joined by my colleagues Alki Thompson and Vern Schellinger. Alki is a recruiter and Vern is a former HR exec turned career coach, and I am a recruiter and a career coach, and we are here to provide all kinds of wonderful job search perspectives for your job search journey. So this is how we run it. I think we got a couple new folks here, so it's an open Q&A. You're welcome to ask any question that you like, and we're here to support you. So who would like to kick us off?
Well, it's my first time, so I'll say good morning, everybody.
Welcome, Leslie.
Not sure what to expect. Sharon and I happened to cross paths maybe 2 days ago, and I wasn't surprisingly not familiar with your work and what you do. I do recognize maybe one face, Diane. Did we not work together maybe a dozen years ago?
Wow,
How about that?
that's a small world.
That's just uncanny. I was just looking like that looks like a really familiar face there. Good to see you. Great to see
That's
you.
amazing. That's really definition of small world.
That's wild. We worked at the Children's Hospital Association.
Amazing.
That's right. That's right. It's great to see you.
Yep, which I left in 2012. So that's definitely been a while.
Yeah, I left before you. So
Well, see, here's a connection y'all can make. Maybe you can connect offline. Yay.
Yeah.
absolutely.
We are always
Absolutely.
talking about this in this call, the power of, Vern always talks about it, the power of human connection and, you know, how we can help each other. So there you go.
This is a dormant relationship.
Yes, that's what we call,
We
yes, we call
all
it a
have.
dormant relationship that you can
Dormant,
easily
in the sense that
resurrect.
you had a relationship, a really strong relationship at one time, and you haven't, all of a sudden now you're seeing each other, what, 10 years later or 5 years later? But the connection
than
is
10.
still there because you experienced each other's character, the competence, your communication skills, your team building skills. You experienced all of that before, so it's pretty easy to reconnect, and you've each traveled different paths, so you have new information, new contacts, new people in your network that might help the other person. There's a lot of good stuff there.
That's great. Yeah, Christine, you just said you have a story about dormant relationships. Please share.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Well, you could,
Okay.
can you, or you're a little bit light. I think it might be your earbuds.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. That's perfect.
Is that better?
Mhm.
So, Shira encouraged me to, start reaching out and connecting with people. And I'm working in a field where the experts really do need some business expertise. And I had this ping in my mind, and it's above, saying you really need to reconnect with this person because they have business expertise. They were at my wedding. We worked together at American University at the Kogat School of Business over 25 years ago.
Hold it up a little closer, Christine.
Oh, over
Thanks.
25
Thanks.
years
Yep.
ago. And it took a while to find her, but I reached out to her. And I work in addiction and mental health, and it turns out that she had a very personal experience with addiction and mental health in the last 4 years. And she said, the idea that I was pitching, she said, I'm on board. Let me know how I can help and what I could do. We talked for 2 hours and walked away with action plan of how, and it's one of those classic examples of don't assume the person's always doing a favor for you. Sometimes you reaching out is doing a favor for them. And they're looking for a new project to work on and dig their heels into and deal with what they have to go through. And the project that I was suggesting was right on target. Now we just got to figure out how to make money.
So Christine, if it's okay, I think we're on a networking topic, which is, if that's okay, can we sort of go here? Because this is one of those very important elements of a job search that frankly, makes a lot of people a little nervous, right? And I'd love to unpack that a little bit. Alki and Vern would love your support. And maybe we can just sort of dive into this, unpack it a little bit. One of the things that I've shared recently with folks is that, I think it's really helpful for us to reframe how we think about networking in the course of a job search. And Christine, you hit the nail on the head when you're like, well, it's not necessarily just about you getting something, but you could be helpful to someone else. So I'm going to put another sort of spin on that. And I've shared this before, that I truly believe that when we're networking, we are offering ourselves as a blessing to someone. We are. It's not about us. I mean, life isn't about us anyway, right? We're here to love and we're here to serve. And networking in a job search is not really just about putting food on your table. I mean, that's a lovely benefit. Okay. But when you're networking, you're reaching out and you're offering an opportunity to help somebody else. And so I'm hoping that this will help to take a little bit of the nerves away, because so often when people are networking, like, oh, I don't want to impose, I don't want to be right. It's or I don't want to be rejected. Not about you. You offer yourself. You have so many skills. You have connections. You have resources. You have ideas. You have all of these things that could truly help somebody else in their walk as much as they can help you. You never know where their synergies are going to be. And it could be, some people say necessity is the mother of invention, right? It could be that the necessity of you looking for a job prompted you to reach out to this person, Christine, right? But actually there was this beautiful opportunity that just sort of surfaced because you connected. And I've seen that happen myself. I'm sure all of us have seen that, right? Where you don't just bump into somebody, you intentionally reach out, but there's something else that comes out that you never would have anticipated. And one of the easiest ways to do that is to try to sort of resurrect what Vern calls the dormant relationship. And you can easily do that on LinkedIn. If you go to your LinkedIn and you hit the My Network tab, it'll come up with all your however many connections you have. And you start looking through those people. And what I would do is I would start reaching out to the people who you might have actually had a good relationship, like Diane and Leslie. Okay, if you're not LinkedIn with each other, obviously, hopefully you will be now soon. But let's just say you found each other on LinkedIn. And maybe you hadn't talked in a long time, but you're like, oh yeah, Leslie, Diane, right? Yeah, I remember. But you had a good connection at one point. Look at all of those people you know really well, people maybe you don't know as well, but you had a strong connection. Those are the people that are going to be the easiest for you to reach out to. And you can simply do a quick little note. Hi, so-and-so, been a super long time since we connected, long time no see, whatever you want to say. I would love to reconnect, see what's going on with you, see, how maybe we can collaborate, how I can be helpful. And that's it. If you want to mention you're doing a job search, that's fine. But that's not even the point. The point is to reconnect and see where you can find some synergies. You never know. It could be on a personal level. It may be that one of you has a personal request need and somebody has a connection. Just be helpful, right? And you can use this opportunity to make those connections. Yeah, you've been amazing how receptive people. People are receptive. Look, people want to help. You have to assume that, actually. Don't you want to help? If somebody reached out to you, wouldn't you want to be helpful? Of course, they want to be helpful back, right? So never think of yourself as imposing. Think of yourself as somebody who wants to offer yourself. And I'll say one more thing, and then Vernon, I'd love to hear from you. When I said that you can be a blessing, in addition to, yes, all the different personal synergies, remember too, when you're looking for a job, it's not actually about you looking for a job. There is an employer out there who has a business need and they're waiting for you to show up. They're looking for you right now. And how else are they going to find you? Look, LinkedIn's job board, Indeed, Career Builder, that is a mess for them too. We recruiters we're inundated. We don't know how to go through it all to figure people out. But when you're networking, what you're doing is you're bringing yourself to the forefront and saying to your network, if there is an organization that could benefit from my skill set, I'd love to partner with them. That's what you're saying. That's the point of it. You've got to let a ton of people know so that those employers can know that you're around, that you're able to help them in a certain way. That's also what I mean by being a blessing. You're offering your blessing of their skill set to somebody who doesn't even yet know that you exist. Okay, so Vern, Alki, any other thoughts around this?
Well, I'll say pretty much what Shira said, but just say it a little bit differently from what we do at Contacts Count, and that is to try to get people to understand that networking is simply about teaching and giving. That every conversation is about teaching and giving, or it has the potential to be about teaching and giving. And again, as Shira said, if you're in the job search especially, you've got to be teaching people about who you are, what you're good at, what your experience is, so that if there is a job that they know about, they can connect you to it because you've just told them, you've taught them about your skills. But it never can be a one-way conversation. It should be about how can you take advantage of the time that you're with them to learn something about them? And in learning something about them, then you're able, the more you learn about them, the greater likelihood you can give back to them in some way. And so if you just approach every conversation from that standpoint, you'll be in a much better place to get all of the results that Shira just talked about.
Alki, any thoughts?
Morning. I agree with both. I'll even use Vern's contact count just to remind everybody, because I know we have a lot of familiar faces who've heard our preaching on this a lot. But your contacts count, and I personally don't think everybody minds their contact treasure chest enough. Most people turn to the job boards when it's time to search for a job. That's where they turn first. And I think on this call, we've been saying for a long time, yeah, you can go there, but you should turn to your contacts and make sure that you're taking a look at, an aunt, a friend, a former coworker, like happened on this call today. I think as a recruiter, especially now, since there's so much, I talk a lot about traffic, the job search traffic, since there's so much traffic on the typical job boards, there's other places that you can turn. So just a reminder that, for every 4 or 5 friends that you have, once you dispatch them to keep their eyes and ears open for you, if you're applying for 12 jobs, that's you competing for so many people for those 12 jobs. If you dispatch your 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 contacts, they have layers and layers of first level connections, second level connections, third level. You just exponentially, increase the speed of your job search exponentially. So just a reminder to turn to those former coworkers, bosses, people in other departments, even that you used to work with, people that you see on LinkedIn, people at church, people in your neighborhood. You never know who knows someone. You never know.
It occurred to me, Alki, as you were talking, that there are actually 2 people who are on this call right now who are the fruit of me doing that a few months ago. I'm not going to call out the 2 people, although you probably will figure out who they are in a second. But one person on this call is here because I reached out to a former colleague, a CEO, and just had a little networking chat. It was over this, like earlier this year. And I'm like, hey, so-and-so, haven't talked to you in a long time. Love to see how I can be helpful. In the course of that conversation, I was reminding this person or letting them know what I'm doing right now. I'm a career coach, amongst other things. I also do outplacement work, right? If somebody, needs to, transition an employee. Well, as a result, they called me like a couple, 3 months later, and I'm now working with somebody on this call because of that, right? And then there's another person on this call who's here because I had another call with another CEO, and I said, hey, this is what I'm doing, whatever. And that person said, you know what? I'm thinking about like hiring a number 2 executive, and Shira, can you help me with that search? Sure enough, we start working together, and there's somebody on this call who was a candidate, wasn't the perfect fit, but I offered this call to them, and they're sitting here right now. So do you see how this can all work, right? There's fruit upon blessing upon blessing that can happen when you take that next step, right? To make that outreach. You never know how many people can benefit from it. So just one more encouragement. Lydia?
Yes, good morning, everybody. It feels good to be back with all the positive energy, the inspiration, and all the good stuff. I just wanted to let you know, Shira, as you spoke, and you spoke about the flip side of networking, where it's not what you're looking for, but what you can offer. It was very powerful to me because I know that, but I had forgotten. And I was going in this time with like, what can I get? What can I get? But, the balance feels more, it even already makes me feel very relaxed that I'm not going to attack anybody. We're just we're just networking.
That's
And
right.
I think it's a very great way to look at networking. It is powerful. I'd totally forgotten.
Yeah.
Totally forgotten.
There are some folks in our world, and Carrie, I see your hand. In my world, so me and Alki and we're all consultants, right? And we happen to play in the workforce world. Well, there are a lot of us consultants who actually will start networking groups. Now I started this particular group because of the pandemic, okay? But I have other groups that I started. In my case, I work in the association world. So, association, networking groups, HR people, CEOs, whatever. Now, yes, I am absolutely here to give back to the community, but look, but my prompter was obviously to build my business, right? To build a reputation, to let people know what I'm doing. There has been so much fruit I've done these for like over a decade, each one of these groups. The people who meet each other, who are like, oh my, I never would have met so-and-so. And I'm just there, I'm just facilitating. I'm just convening it. They're having so much powerful interactions between them because somebody like a me or a you took the time, because we had the impetus, say, hey, let me convene my group together. And I'm going to go a step further. You don't have to be a consultant like us to do that. Any one of you on this call could start your own networking group just like this. You could find the people who are in what I call your fish pond, people who either do what you do or in the same sector that you are, so, Christine, right? You're obviously you're in the mental health addiction world. I know you're very plugged into that pond. Okay. What would it look like for you to pull together an informal group just like this? Doesn't have to be job seekers, right? But people who are in your related space. Maybe you read on a fairly regular basis and you brainstorm about solutions for your sector. You never know what could happen and what are the synergies that could be formed. So anybody here on this call could do that. You're doing that, Christine. Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. So just be thinking about that. And that's another aspect of networking, is what I call the difference between your lane and your community. So your lane is what you do, it's your profession. Your community is the industry, mission, or sector that you serve. So lane and community. So all of you are in one or both. You have a profession, maybe you're in marketing or HR or accounting or whatever you do, right? And you might have a community. You're in associations or government contracting or commercial real estate or whatever. There are people who play in those ponds, who want to help each other, who want to learn best practices, who want to advance that profession, that sector. You could be the catalyst for that. How
So
easy
that's
is
the community. And
That's
the
the
lane
community.
is
That's
what you
right.
do, like your career.
Yeah, you could pull people together. Now, it could be a job search group. It could just be a professional community where you're just bringing together colleagues who are gainfully employed, right? Who just want to talk about. I've helped so many people do that. I once helped an attorney. He's a general counsel, and I helped him pull together other attorneys. I've helped a marketing person. She's a marketing consultant, and she pulled together CMOs. I mean, there's like so many ways that you can do this. It's free and it's easy, and you've got Zoom, and now everybody's virtual, right? So you don't have to find a conference room anywhere. Pre-COVID, that was a little bit more of a challenge. Now, just send out a LinkedIn note, set up a meetup group, say, hey, everybody, I'm pulling together a group for these kinds of people, and we're going to meet once a month, twice a month, whatever, and talk about issues that affect our community to see if we can help each other. You never know where it could go.
And then I have a last very brief comment, adding to what Mr. Thompson said. About 10 years ago, I was very much actively looking, and I had, done almost everything that I knew in the book via CNM. And one day, just like Mr. Thompson said, one of the facilitators, I've forgotten who it was, said we should ask everybody, we should tell everybody.
Everybody.
Looking, our neighbors, our
You never know.
alumni, he went down the list. And then I'd done everything except my alumni. So I reached out to my alumni in Nova, and we had a little group that I was very dormant in. So I didn't know what was going on there. Apparently they were hiring for a position that I would be a great fit. They hadn't found that person. So the group leader arranged for an interview, and I had been so prepared at CNN that they hired me immediately.
Very good.
You never know.
Yeah.
You never know. By the way, a CNM is the Career Network Ministry. It's run out
Yes,
of Bible
Career
Church.
Network
It's another
Ministry,
job
sorry.
search group. Yeah, a number of you, I think, are familiar with it.
The
Okay,
other-
so I'm done.
And the other thing that we're talking about here is recognize when you build a relationship with someone else, you automatically get access to their network.
Right.
and they get access to your network.
That's right.
So it's a multiplier in the sense that, you know, people that I know, like Shira and I, if I see something that I know Shira would be interested in, or it's a potential lead, I'm of course going to immediately get in touch with her, and vice versa. Shira's going to do the same for me because we've built the relationship over time, and those relationships are just incredibly valuable because, like I said, then you have access to the other person's network, and they're thinking about you and who in their network they can.
And I'm going to make one more comment, then Carrie, I do see you.
Yeah.
So maybe just jump off one point, and that is be an intentional connector. Some of us on this call are natural connectors. Several of us on this call, I already know. I know we just can't help ourselves. Be that way. When you are, whether you're convening a group or whether you're part of a group, doesn't matter. If you meet somebody who you hear has a need and you have a contact in your personal or professional network, make the introduction. Make the introduction. You never know where that fruit can come out of that particular relationship. We who are connectors, we get so much joy doing that. We do it for the love of it. Not everybody's a natural connector. We understand that. That's why I'm sharing this with you to prompt you a little bit. For those of you maybe a little bit more introverted, right? You're not thinking that way. Please, please, please. Your people in your network need to meet each other. Make that introduction. Hi, so-and-so, please meet so-and-so. Thought you might have some synergies because of this, and let them go off and play. Okay, so I just want to encourage you all to do that. So Carrie, you've been waiting patiently.
Okay, I'm going to paint kind of a picture of where I am, and then I'm going to have a couple questions based on that picture.
Sure.
Okay.
I am trying to re-enter the workforce after a 4-year extended caregiving adventure with my father, who's still with us at 96, but now is in better care than I can provide. And in doing so, I've been networking, and in the last month, I'm getting a ton of contract work. I'm getting some pay, some not pay, but positioning me well. My question in all of this really has to do with LinkedIn and with the resume. I'm busier than I've ever been.
Great.
But if you look at my resume in LinkedIn, I haven't done a thing for 4 years. How do I report that, and how do I report what I'm doing
Oh, that's easy.
now?
Yeah, that's pretty simple. So a quick question. Is there like a theme to what you do? Is there like a profession that you're in? Are you doing like similar kind of work for these kinds of companies?
Some is more nonprofit survey, consensus building, vision setting. The second thing is very focused payments consulting.
Okay. So look, I mean, we'd have to probably have an offline conversation to like specifically label what you're doing, but let's just say for the moment you call yourself consultant or some kind of consultant, but the idea is consultant.
Okay.
You can use that as your title, and as your, as the company name. You can either say self-employed or you can say, Whaley and Associates or whatever. It doesn't have to be anything formal, but the point is that you can lump all of that work that you're doing under the one label. And then in the description section of LinkedIn, you can actually say providing contract services for either euphemistically these kinds of companies like nonprofits and government, or specifically the names of companies, so that people know that for the last 4 years, or certainly recently, you've been employed. You've just been doing it on a freelance basis, or a freelance contractor or something like that. You can absolutely say that. Mm-hmm. And
Sure.
I would do that sooner than later, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, just one thing I wanted to clarify with Carrie, when you said you've been on this 4-year caregiving journey, have you been working that time, or did that affect the amount of time that you actually did work?
That drastically affected the time. I spent pretty much all the time taking care of my dad.
Right, because and Shira has shared this before with the group. Sure, the place where you can put that into your LinkedIn
Yep.
profile.
I'm going to go ahead and share my
Yeah.
screen.
Yeah, because this is important for you to know then, Carrie.
Yeah, are you aware, Carrie, and for everybody here, that there is a career break entry? I'm going to show you guys. So here's what it looks like. All right, so let's say, so here you are in LinkedIn, right? You're going to go to your picture, which is one of the ways you can get to your editable page, where all the little pencils are. And you go down to the bottom under experience, okay? So this little plus sign here, it used to be that with this plus sign, all you would do is just add another job. But actually a while back, a year plus ago, probably more than that now, LinkedIn added a new feature. So you click on the plus sign. Instead of saying add position, you can say add career break. And then this drop-down list, please select, oops, has a long list. And here you go, caregiving. Yep. It's a whole long list of things you can check. So let's say you did caregiving. You could either say I'm currently on it, or you could uncheck it, whatever you want. If you unchecked it, it would give you start date, end date. And then a description. Spent, several years caring for an ailing parent, ready to work full and have pursued contract work in recent period and ready for full-time employment as of X date. That's fine. And by the way, for those of you who, and this is not only for people in this call, but if you know of anybody in your network, right, who's dealt with a personal health challenge that has kept them out of the market, so that you do not fall prey to any sort of discrimination, right? You can still use this feature. You can actually say caregiving, and in the description, you can say, spent X time caring for a family member. You are your own family. Don't say personal, it was me. It was cared for a family member and then ready to work as of XYZ time. Okay, so you protect yourself. Nobody needs to know that, but you can say family, and family, having a family, everybody's got family, right? So that's not a protected class. You can certainly say that without fear of discrimination. Okay. Hope that helps.
Sarah, do you recommend doing that? Let's say if one's been unemployed in transition, like putting a label to that, or just letting it be sort of quiet?
It depends. It depends.
that
If it's an extended period, you can make that decision. So let me go back here. There's no like one answer for that. I would say, look, if it's been even anything up to a year these days, because it does take people a long time typically to land. So I would say, here where it says here, which is the one? This one says layoff position eliminated. That's more of a description of in between, right? You can do that. Oh, here it is, career transition. You can use that one. Yeah, if it's been enough time. I mean, I would say anything over a year is probably good,
Okay.
a time to do that is fine. And then you can just mention, what you've been doing and the kinds of opportunities you're looking for even is fine.
Thank
But
you.
anytime you can do, whether it's contract work, freelance work, even volunteer work that's related to your profession, not volunteer work that's unrelated, okay? So it's like if you're fostering dogs or anything like that, that would go under volunteer. There's a volunteer section. But if it's related to your career field, I would definitely add that under experience so that people see that you've been doing something, during that time. Christine?
I was gonna,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, were you gonna add to that or go to a new question?
A little bit of both. So go ahead and add to that.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'll be brief. Shira normally says it on this call too, and as a recruiter, I'll add this too. Number one, that break is a godsend for a lot of candidates on LinkedIn. We needed that 20 years ago. However, it doesn't mean that employers are going to take it easy on you because you put that in there. You may still face some discrimination. You may still face some bias. I know on this call, Shira says it a lot. You don't have to ever go into or explain your health or personal health situation. Even though you have that on there, you may, walk into an interview and that may be the very first question. So tell me about that, health challenge or health break. And so you just have to remember, or if you said, caregiving and it was yourself, as Shira said, don't forget that going forward when you're sitting in an interview, to protect yourself and to prepare for those types of questions. Be prepared to defend your break for whatever it was, because they will still ask you. So just a reminder from a recruiter's point of view, because you put that, don't walk in going, oh, I'm going to be good. They see the career break. They're not going to ask me any questions about that. They're still risk averse, Shira says often on this call, and they're curious about that. You may come across some good employers who may not, beat you over the head about it, but be prepared. Just because you use that break doesn't mean that you're not going to get asked a lot of questions about it.
It's a really good point, Alec. Thank you for that. This has been a good conversation so far. Yeah, Christine,
Just
sorry.
to add to that, I think, and it's the what color is your parachute? There's so many transferable skills that you experience, Carrie, while you were given care. You learn to negotiate health. You learn to navigate very complex systems. And I don't know, Shira, how you would reflect that in LinkedIn. But for example, I took a career break when my children were born, and I'm in marketing, and I delved deep into the preschool co-op world and then early childhood education. But while I was there, I still was pursuing my interests. But even if you weren't, there are ways to identify skill sets that you did during that time that you still grew as a person, and you can still really contribute the lessons you learned from that experience. It's just trying to connect the
That's a great
dots.
point, Christine. Yeah, let me pull couple threads out of that. And that would be for, well, for a couple things. Number one, if there are specific skills that you learned, and when I say skills, like in HR, we talk about hard skills and soft skills. So roughly, a hard skill is a functional skill. It's something you know how to do. Project management, accounting, right? Something, right? Writing, right? Something you do. Your soft skills are more how you do it. The qualities, the attributes, right, your ability to have good interpersonal skills, be organized, strategic, critical thinker, those kinds of things. If there is a hard skill or set of hard skills that you learn how to do that you want to offer to an employer because you actually want to sort of pivot in that world. So for example, Carrie, totally making this up, right? You were in that elder care world for a while. It would not be surprising to me if somebody like you said, you know what? I'm really passionate about this issue now. I actually want to go into elder care. I work for, plenty of people have done that because of this very situation you went through. You would actually highlight that. You would actually highlight that on your resume and say elder care and right. And you would pull out the skills and working with nursing homes and this, that, and the other thing. And you would literally shift. There's a concept I have. I'm not sure the last time I shared it on this call, but it's worth mentioning now. It's going to sound funny, but it'll make sense in a second. I call it ing versus ing versus ing versus er. Ing is the skill, is the profession. Writing versus writer, event planning, event planner. So it's the skills you have. Everybody's got a whole bunch of ing skills, stuff you know how to do. But there are some of those ing skills that could be repurposed into into a profession. I've helped people do that myself. Some of you might have heard me say a long time ago, I worked with an attorney who wanted to become a recovering attorney, right? He wanted to leave the profession and he wanted to become a writer. And so we pulled out all the writing skills because attorneys have a lot of writing. We did a lovely LinkedIn profile about how he likes to write and whatever, all of those things about his writing passion. And he got a job as a journalist with a legal trade publication. So he shifted his lane. He went from writing to writer, but he kept the community. He kept the legal community because the legal community felt safe in hiring him and helping him make a shift. And today he's an English teacher. He fully transferred out of the legal. Okay, he puddle jumped. So I'm just riffing off of what Christine's saying because there are ways to do that. Now, the other piece of this is in the interview. If you have particularly soft skills, or maybe even some hard skills that you don't want to turn it into an but you just want to let an employer know, hey, look, I've got this. In the interview is a great place to showcase that if the employer could benefit from that transferable skill set. Don't just offer it gratuitously and say, oh, by the way, I've got all these great skills. Employers are not looking for, employers want to know that you can solve their business challenges. They're coming to that interview with a whole bunch of boxes. Can you, have you, will you, oh, and do you want to? And your job is to figure that out, look at that job, really, really read that job description, pull it all apart. Any research you can do in advance, if you happen to be working with a recruiter, even better, who can give you some backstory. And your job is to say, of all the things that I've done, personally, professionally, transferable, whatever, can I solve their specific business challenges? Don't bring everything to the table. Don't bring every spice in the kitchen cabinet. Bring the cumin and the paprika, because then they're going to be making a Middle Eastern dish, right? Only bring to the table what they need. But to Christine's point, Carrie, yes, call forth those spices if you believe that that employer could benefit from knowing that you can do those things, right? It's a great place and a great way on. So there's the resume piece, but there's also the interview piece. So thanks for bringing that up, Christine. It's a good point.
That's really good feedback. Part of my skill set is government relations and advocacy.
Yeah.
And I always joked as a caregiver how much those skills prepared me for caregiving.
Sure.
For the
It's
art of
advocacy,
caregiving.
it's patient advocacy.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
And I do think it prepares me for the next step. And the next job. I don't think it was time spent eating bonbons. It was time developing my advocacy skills in a much more intensive way than I could ever dream.
And Carrie, I want to compliment you on something. And it occurred to me, and then now that you're hearing that you're a lobbyist, I'm like, now I understand why you did this. When you opened up your conversation with us, I loved how you framed it. And I want everybody to pay attention to this if they heard how Carrie opened up, because you didn't just say, well, yeah, my dad was sick and I, spent time helping him for the last 40 years. You framed it in terms of helping with your caring for your dad and helping him through this, like caring through him as an adventure. And you framed it in a way that was very positive and uplifting, that said to us, hey, this was something that you was out of love, right? That you did this, which of course it would probably, for everybody it would be that way, but that was the way, that was the language that you used. And you were intentional about how you frame that. I want everybody to pay attention to that, because how you frame your life, your work, your transitions, all of that to an employer matters. I had it happen pretty recently when I was doing a search, and I had a few candidates who were finalist candidates in this. They were high levels, vice president level kind of a thing. And there was this one particular two of the people were very positive. Every interaction they had with me, they were positive, they were uplifting, they were upbeat. There was one person who wasn't that way. And when we had to reschedule, because these were like, it was a very high level search, right? There was all kinds of people involved in risk. And this guy, I mean, he gave me an earful every time we had to do it. He's like, well, they don't respect me and I don't feel valued, and how could they? And da 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 da. Well, that had to share that feedback with the employer, because as it turns out, I mean, this person's attitude was not where it needed to be. And all three people experienced pretty much the same experience. This person wasn't, was framing things in a way that showed that his approach, right, wasn't really that productive. And that unfortunately cost him the job. That and other things that he did. So Carrie, I just want to commend you for how you framed this very trying time in your life and in your dad's life, but you framed it in a positive way. And I think we all could learn from that in terms of how you message it.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's framing, showing your attitude. It absolutely is. It absolutely is. It's showing, it's like out of the heart, the mouth speaks, as the Bible says, right? So if you're framing things in a way that says, hey, I'm glass half full, I'm optimistic, I'm positive, I'm aspirational, I'm looking for the positive in this, is the flip side of what a lot of us might do, which is, well, begrudgingly, I did da da da, and sort of get into complaining mode. Employers don't want complaining, they want positive. They want a solutions-oriented person. Take the problem, turn it into an opportunity. Everybody's looking for opportunity people. Everybody's looking for possibilitarians. People are not looking for complainers, right? I want to see that you're going to take that lemon and you're going to turn into lemonade.
Shira, Tammy has a question, and Diane put something in the chat that I wanted to respond to. So
yeah, please, Tammy.
Hi, good morning. I reached out to two friends this week and I heard what I felt like were red flags in their sort of recruiting journeys. The first mentioned that she was preparing for her, I can't remember, it was the seventh or eighth interview. And the second was basically creating a presentation that truthfully was a piece of like free consulting work, I think. And I just was wondering, since you guys mentioned it a little bit earlier, like, is the market that risk averse? And is this
Yes.
common?
Yes, very common. If you don't, sorry I'm talking so much, but if you don't mind, I'll jump in. Alki and Vern, definitely, please, love your perspectives in this. Very much. And I'll address both of those, the 7 or 8 interviews. There are some companies who do a whole lot more than that, actually. In fact, Capital One, as my understanding, it's like Fort Knox to get into Capital One, just for anybody who's ever interested in working there. They do like 14 interviews. They do 360s all over the place. There are some companies who are that risk averse. They want you to meet everybody. But I will share something with you to flip it into the positive. That can actually be a benefit to you. The more people you meet in the process, the better you're going to know if you want to work there. Speaking of this other job, the one that I had, the candidate who had a different attitude, one of the other 2 candidates who were very positive, one of those people actually said, because we had lots and lots of interviews, one of those people said, wow, Shara, this is great. I'm so glad I get to meet with all these people because I want to know who I'm going to be working with. I want to ask all these questions. Please, thank you, bring it on. So that can actually be a blessing for you if you go through 7 or 8. You meet the team, you meet the boss, you meet the this, you meet the that, and it gives you lots of rich information that helps you make a better decision if that company is going to be right for you. So that's my take on that. As far as the presentation goes, over the years, I myself have asked candidates to do presentations. And again, there's 2 sides to it. The presentation, when somebody asks you to do that, what they're looking to do is, and they typically would do it at the end of the interview process to say, kind of get your ideas, how you might stand up the role, maybe have you do a SWOT analysis or whatever. It's not only good for the employer, it's also good for you. The employer gets to see how you think, all right, your ideas, but it's also good for you on 2 levels. Number one, it gets you to own the position for a minute and see, is this a role that I actually want to do? It's giving you an opportunity to try the job on for size. You can look at it, you can evaluate it, you can say, let me do a little SWOT analysis. Let me think about what's going on in this organization. How would I stand up this role? Do I want to stand up this role? Number one. Number two, in the interview, after you've done the presentation, presumably you're going to have a discussion with the team about your presentation. Guess what? You can treat that as if it was your first day on the job. What's your interaction with this team? What are their ideas? What are your ideas? Do you get along? Do you synergize? Because so often employer interviews don't allow for that future forward conversation. Most interviews are 98% pass based. Most interviews are simply saying, can you, have you? Most employers don't even realize that they need to bring the job to the forefront, that they need to give you a chance to try the job on for size, to own it, to feel it, to experience it, to say, is this really something I want to do? Because job descriptions aren't enough. They don't add color. And most employers don't even know how to add the color. So if they give you an opportunity to do a presentation, I would not, rather than looking at it as free consulting, I would look at it as a chance to say, wow, this is great. I get to try the job on for size and I get to present my ideas, to show who I am, but also to say, is this something that I want? Am I going to be able to engage with people? Is this the kind of role that actually is going to be meaningful to me? I would embrace it. I'd run after it and say, this is a great opportunity. And by the way, if you're fearful of them taking your ideas, so what? They take your ideas. They can't implement it the way you're going to implement it, okay? Ideas are ideas. People have ideas all of the time. But I think it's a really great opportunity for you to see if this is the right fit. That's my take on it. So Alki and Vern, I'll let you chime in, and Tammy would love to hear your feedback on that too.
Go ahead, Vern.
No, go ahead, Alki.
Oh, real quick, as a recruiter for both things, 7 or 8 interviews and 14. Yeah, that's a lot of interviews, depending on your perspective. So there's some people who have all day and they can do 14, and there's some people who need a job now and they're like, I can't wait this long. Or it depends on how the process goes too. If it's a bumpy ride all along the way or a tough screening process, candidates sometimes tap out, employers tap out. So in my view, I like, the shorter process, efficient turnaround, but every employer has their process. If their process is 10 interviews and 35, panel members, that's the process. And like Shira said, you're interviewing them as well. So you get a chance to explore and find out, oh, this is what it's like, or this is what the people are like. I've met more people now. Now I know. On the presentation piece, there is one side of the coin that Shira mentioned, hey, opportunity to demonstrate. And if they require that as part of their process, you have to do it. I have seen people do it differently though. Some people have put at the bottom, this is my work, don't copy it, not to be, reproduced, used, or whatever. Some people have put that line at the bottom. Some people have done projects that are, theirs, and they've had to decide, how much of this do I want to share, or they've asked the employer, hey, is it okay if I submit this, will it be used? And unfortunately, as a recruiter, I can tell you, I've seen I've seen those ideas stolen, to Shira's point, and then used, and I've seen candidates brought in just to get ideas, and so it happens. But yeah, Shira, the way Shira colored it, it's your choice. If you want the job, enough, you do what's required, and you still have options on how you can protect yourself and protect your work.
Tammy, was that all helpful? Oh, Vern, do you have another thought?
No, that covered it pretty well. I wanted to go back to what I said also, because Diane had a question in the chat, and I wanted to clarify it. You talked about informational interviews, Diane. What specifically, what are you talking about? Informational interviews about a job, or informational interviews? What was the context of informational interviews?
So it's happened to me a couple times recently where someone connects me to someone else, and I'm trying to follow up, build a relationship, learn more about the company. So it's been both company specific and then in general about an industry.
Okay. My thoughts about informational interviews are, they're a good thing. And just as you said, if it's helping you learn more about a particular industry, then certainly if you have the opportunity, take an informational interview. And it's a networking opportunity with whoever the person is that you're having the informational interview with. The other type of informational interviews is to have an informational interview with somebody who's a great networker. And tell me how you became such, how did you develop your network? What were the skills you used? That type of thing. So,
that's a good idea. Thank you.
yeah.
Right, Tammy, is anything else we can help you with?
Yeah, sure. I think the only thing I'd mention is that I think they presented as red flags to me because these weren't presented as being a part of the process, right? It seemed like it was, shoved in there last minute. So to me, read more like indecision than, this is the way we do things, and, blah, blah, blah.
I see. All right. Can I just address that super fast? So it's very interesting. So yes, it could be. I mean, that's what you're talking about. The other thing too is that a lot of employers don't know what they're doing with interviews. They're making it up as they go along. And unless you're some big company that has some big formal HR process, most companies are like, well, I don't know, maybe we should. I've been doing this recruiting for 30 years, and most of my clients are like, sure, what do you think? Should we this? Should we that? Da, da, da. And at the very end, like, well, we should probably add this other thing. It's not about indecision. It's just more that they're not professional interviewers. They're not professional recruiters. And so they're kind of, sort of morphing it and adjusting it based upon that particular search, that particular candidate pool. Well, we should probably add a writing test in here. Maybe we should, which doesn't necessarily say anything about the company. It's just that they're not professional full-time recruiters. And maybe even their HR department isn't that formalized, or they're just kind of figuring it out, right? So I personally wouldn't use that as a red flag. It's just sort of the way that it is on the back end. At least that's been my experience. Vern and Alki, do you have anything else?
Well, I'd go back to what you said earlier, Shira, about, if you're in that type of a process, it does give you a chance to learn about the company, who you're going to be working with, who their personalities are, do you connect with them? And you are getting a chance to learn something about the culture of the company, which should be a number one priority for all of you in a job search. You want to make sure that you're going to take, the job, that you can learn as much as you can about the culture. However, my personal opinion is you really won't know about the culture until you accept the job and walk into that place on day one. And then you really start to experience whatever the culture is, because the interviewing process is kind of, you're not an employee yet. You're going through this process, however they design it, however professional it is or unprofessional it is. But it does help you make a decision if you ever got an offer. Is this a company I want to work for?
Right. And it may say nothing about the job, like and I would say this in general, recruiting processes often, not always, often have not much to do with your experience on the job. Recruiting is recruiting. It's its own thing. People recruit well, not so well, you have a great candidate experience, you don't have a great candidate experience. Often that is completely a separate process from how it actually is going to be working with the culture. Not always. Sometimes it is indicative, usually not. Because again, most people are sort of winging it in terms of what the recruiting process is. But then the job itself, who you're going to be working with, supervisor, colleagues, you want to ask those questions in the interview, regardless of what the recruiting process is like. But when you're in the interview and you're talking to people, that's where you get to know what the job's like. Who are you engaging with? What's their personality? What's the team culture? What's the organizational culture? Ask those questions when you're in the interviews, regardless of what the process is. Again, the process could be indicative, but usually I would just say, make sure that you're asking good questions in the interviews to get a sense as to what the job is really like.
I'm sitting here biting at the bit a little bit, because I was thinking while Shira was talking, and even while Vern was talking, a lot of people call, Shira and I recruiters, but we wear several hats. One of them is consultant, and Shira was just talking about that a second ago. We consult so much with managers on the process, how to handle candidates, how to talk to candidates, how to navigate the offer process, and that I think Shira has a lot of repeat employers that she's worked with through the years, so you get to know each other. When you have repeat people that you work with, they learn your ways, you learn their ways. But a lot of times when it's new, especially for you as candidates, you're walking in cold. To Shira's point, they have a job, they have the company, the organization, they know what they do inside the organization. But for some of them, they don't know how to do this interview thing. They don't know how many interviews should we do. You know what? Go grab Jake. He's at the coffee stand. Go grab him. Let's bring him in on this panel interview. Shira and I cringe, and we're like, oh no, don't do that. Don't do this. Don't do this. And so I was saying I'm biting at the bit, because it just makes me think about the coaching, the teaching, the consulting that we do with employers and managers. But this is also why we spend so much time doing what we're doing now with candidates and job seekers, because you're going in also, a lot of times you are walking into bad situations, bad questions at interviews. Some of them might even be illegal, HR compliant questions that you get asked in your interviews. So we're saying this to say, if you've interviewed enough, or if you've ever been a manager, you know that not every interview that you're going through as a job seeker or candidate is perfect, correct, right, the way that it should be at all. And so, to your point, Tammy, yeah, I've talked to candidates after, how did it go? And they're like, well, they asked me about my sister and my cousin or this thing. I'm like, what? They asked what? Oh no, we already talked about that. And then I have to get the candidate off to go back and call them like, hey, the candidate said you said what? So these guys, they aren't master interviewers. And even if we give them a guide, a lot of times they still end up off script. So expect it is what we're saying. And when you hear things, like a lot of people like to say flags and whatever. I mean, we all use that word because employers use it too. Alki, that's a red flag. They were only there for 1 year. And I'm like, all right, everybody, let's tone down that word flag a little bit, because you're going to see things. You're going to see flags. You're going to see notes. But the question is, how are those handled? Or did you expect it? Yeah, that's a flaggish type of question. Or wow, last minute you asked me to come up with a presentation. Okay, I expected that. Not every employer is perfect at this interview thing. So let me ask you more questions then, because it's not making sense to me. So let me ask, how long should it be? What are you looking for? Then you start finding out a little bit about, you might find out something about the employer. Wow, this is how they threw that together, or this is the answer they came back with. And to Vern's point, you're learning about culture then at that point. You are piecing together a little bit either how they do interviews, how they respond spontaneously, or possibly what the culture is like, maybe.
Yeah, I liken job search to dating. You know, it's a bit contrived, right? You're sitting at dinner, everybody's doing their thing, you're trying to figure each other out. You're not living together, you're just talking. And that's what the interview process is like. And so anytime you do, I mean, to your point, Alki, right? Anytime you have a question, a flag, probe a little bit more. Unpack. Well, what's the flag what's flagging for you? What are you concerned about? See if there's in another interview you can uncover that, right? Get to the root of whatever that flag is by asking maybe a different question. Is the flag that they're disorganized over there? Is the flag what? And then maybe you can ask a question that will kind of get to the root of what is the actual culture? Because the employers are doing that with you too. They're saying all kinds of things. Oh, well, Susie, she said blah, blah, blah. What does she mean by that? Well, I don't know. Maybe you meant something different than what came out, so you just need to ask more questions. So Tammy, hope that's all helpful.
Can I jump in and ask a different
Oh,
question?
actually, Anushka's had their hand up. Dan, if that's okay. Anushka?
Hi, Shira. Thank you so much for this meeting, and it's literally a godsend for all us job seekers right now. So, well, my question is, I had an interview with a company recently, and they asked me a question as like, give me relevant experience as to our job posting. So, I want to know what exactly do they want to hear? Like, is it more about my skills, my projects, what I did in the work, or what I achieved with it? That's something like that was really muddy with my thinking at that time.
Yeah, yes, and yes.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, well, meaning that, look, however you frame it, whether you're sharing your skills or whether you're sharing accomplishments, which we always encourage you to share accomplishments, what they're trying to do is they're trying to get at to what extent have you demonstrated your ability to do the work that they're asking you to do? Okay, so when you're looking at this is a general comment around interview prep, right? When you're prepping for an interview, how do you do that? Because it's a longer conversation than what we have right now, but look at that job description, and I want you to piece it apart in a few different sections. Look at the summary, if they have a summary section about what the job's sort of about. Look at the first 3 to 4 bullets under responsibilities and the first 3 to 4 bullets under qualifications. Okay. Those are typically going to be the 3 places where the employer is going to kind of lean in and really let you know what they want. So Anushka, your job is then to go through your background. Yes, number 1, do I have the skills? Have I demonstrated my ability to do those things? And what accomplishment stories could be projects, because projects and accomplishment stories very similar, right? You're basically telling them a story. Once upon a time, and we have a formula for that. Everybody has a little different one. I use what's called CAB, challenge, action, benefit. Some people do STAR, situation, task, action, result. It's just a story. What was the background of the challenge? What were the actions that I took? And how did the organization benefit at the end? And you can frame that as a project. You can frame that as just an accomplishment, and you're going to weave your skills in there. And you're basically saying to the employer, I know you're asking me to do these things. Here are some stories. Now, if they're asking you at a general high level, which I think is what you were suggesting, like maybe at the beginning of the interview, so tell me how your background fits. I mean, you're not going to spend 20 minutes giving them all of these stories. What you do want to do is at a high level, very high level, you want to align your experience, broadly speaking, and say, look, all roads have led here. It looks to me like you're looking for someone who can do X, Y, Z, and be this kind of person. Let me give you broadly, and you take like a minute, maybe 2 minutes to do this. And you have a summary analysis of your experience. In the course of my career, I've grown into, I'm making this up, let's say you're a marketing professional, right? I've really developed my marketing skills or my digital marketing skills over, recent years. And it really looks like you're looking for somebody who can do blah, blah, blah. I've had some really excellent experience doing blah, blah, blah. Oh, and let me just give you a quick example of that, and then you go into a CAB story, right? But you're trying to listen for what they think, what you think they want, and at a high level, what you're able to give them. And then as the interview progresses, then you can get into more CAB stories, more specifically around certain kinds of skills that you have. Alki, I know you've been nodding your head. Do you want to share something?
Maybe. And yeah, when you first asked that question, and you don't have to answer this now, but because Shira just touched on it, but my initial thought was, if they asked that question, okay, then if I was a candidate, I would go, sure. Now, can I ask you any specific areas, or what specific part of your description, or would you like my examples from? And then you can pinpoint specifically, because they usually have 1, 2, 3, 4. To Shira's point, they have 1 or 2, 3 or 4 main things that they want to know that you've done that this job does. The last person could have been the best person who's ever done it for them, and is retiring after 20 years. So they want to know, can you be like them? Can you be better than them? So they want specifics. I'll also add to, if you toss out like your resume, the breaks in your resume and the gaps and the other biases that they have, I don't know what Shira would say to this, but in my opinion, for all job seekers on this call, for all job seekers everywhere, this is the job search. That question right there, this is where you get moved on or pushed aside. Again, if you toss out the biases that they might throw in. What they want to know when they post a job, when they bring you in for an interview, and even if there is no job description, when they talk to me as a recruiter, when they talk to Shira, they have things that they want and things that they need. The person who matches that the best, who's done it before, who has specific examples,
Right.
is who they're going to hire. And before I jump off, I'll use a football analogy, because I used to be in sports and youth sports and semi-pro sports training and all that kind of stuff. If there was a team, like an overseas team or an NFL team, their current quarterback goes down and they need to bring on a quarterback who can run fast, who can also throw to their 2 all-pro wideout receivers. So they need, who can run, down the field 70, 80 yards. They need somebody with an arm who can throw 70 to 80 yards. They're going to bring in quarterbacks who can throw 70 to 80 yards. If they need a quarterback who can, because they run a play that's a hook in the middle of the field, they're going to go back and look at game tape and quarterbacks who have thrown successfully to the middle of the field. Sure, if you can do all these other things, great, maybe. They're looking for specifics. So what Shira said, that job description, when they give you the specifics, give them the specifics. Most candidates don't really know that. And sometimes you have to ask, hey, I saw this here. Like, can you give me an example of what this role does and that? And the person who's doing it now, the last person who did it, what were the metrics? And then you answer their question. Oh, I get what you mean. Oh, I did that 70 times over. I did it, and I was the best person on our team. I did it, 5 times a week, yada, yada. And you give them specifics. When they look at candidates, other than personality, the person who checks the boxes specifically for what they're looking for, that's who gets moved on.
Moved on.
So when
And then when they have those 2, 3 candidates who can all do it, then other things come into play: personality, culture fit, career motivations, things like that.
So give them specifics. When they ask you, don't just make up something or some broad. Give them a specific of how you've done it, because when you do that, we're sitting on the other side of the table. We're imagining our tables at work, like, she could go in there. She could work with those 3 that we have. Yeah, she's done that before. They twirl things in a circle. She knows how to twirl things in an exact circle that we do. It'll be less training time, less of a fit, less money spent, getting her up to speed. Boom.
One example, literally yesterday, I just completed a search, and there were 2 finalist candidates who were absolutely amazing. I mean, we're talking the Olympics, right? Like, they were just neck and neck and neck. And I told them both, I mean, because, to manage their expectations, but they were like amazing. And the employer was like, we love them both. I mean, if we could hire them both, right? And what did it come down to? Subtle, subtle, subtle. There's one person who they didn't offer the job to. How funny is this? The person was a little bit too strategic. Why is that a problem? Because in this particular case, in the life cycle of this organization, they actually wouldn't be able to actualize the strategic vision of this person. They're actually a little bit too sort of flat right now, and they just need someone who can kind of keep the trains going. And this person, who was amazing, was a little bit too, hey guys, we should do blah, 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 very enthusiastic. And the employer's like, we love that, but we're not ready for you. Now, it's just the fit. The person was fantastic, did everything that they needed to do. It just wasn't the exact thing for them right now. And the other person they felt would be just a little bit better. The point is that there are so many subtleties in an employer's considerations when they're looking at you. So to the extent that, so Anushka, I know we made a big deal of this question, but to the extent that you can go through that job, and even in the interview, ask all kinds of good questions around what their goals are, what they're looking for, what their current situation is, who do they need, what does success look like in this job? You're going to do an even better job of bringing out the right stories, the right projects, the right skills that will let them know that you could be the person to help them take them from where they are now to where they want to go. So Anushka, is that helpful? I know we just gave you very big answers. Is that helpful for you?
Yeah, that's actually like really, really helpful. Thank you so much, both Shira and Alki. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, Diane, and then we're going to wrap up.
Thanks for taking my question. So I am in the midst of preparing for an interview in the next few days. And I love the feedback that you guys give on analyzing the job description. However, for this one, it's a 6-person, 30-minute panel interview. And from what I understand, it's one and done. And the job description is the briefest I've seen. So it's like 1 sentence and then 10 requirements. And I meet the 10 requirements, and then I also understand just from someone else who's familiar with the organization that they're in the middle of a reorganization. So I'm just a little bit nervous about how to approach it. I'm killing myself trying to do research, but I'm like, maybe that doesn't matter if they're in the middle of a reorg and nothing's published yet anyway. So
make sure we're understanding. It's this is your first interview with them. It's one interview, 30 minutes, panel. That you said one and done, meaning no more interviews. That's it.
From what I understand, they typically only do 1 interview. Perhaps they'll do a second, but they haven't decided that at this point. So, and the position closed on May 7th. So I'm guessing I'm on the earlier side of this.
Do you know who's going to be on the panel?
No.
They're not. Did you ask?
No, I did. They weren't sure yet. So I don't know. I don't know if they're being coy. And it's just my ability to,
No, I think they just may not know exactly who is going to be on the interview.
Here's a perfect example of they don't know what they're doing.
They just don't know. This is one of those, they just don't, they don't know what they're doing in recruiting, which again, as the case for most people. Well, regardless of all of that, I mean, it's good that you're doing your research. And I appreciate that the job description is very, very light. And there's only so much you can do, right, in your prep. But with that said, to the extent that you can, you want to piece, even if it's a 5-line job description, take those 5 lines and do your best to figure out a few stories, a story for bullet 1, a story for bullet 2, right? Like that, to the best of your ability, and really have that story locked in. Challenge, action, benefit. Rehearse it, practice it, talk to people, be fluent in your storytelling. And when I say fluent, I mean not only that you can recollect the story, but that you can share the story in a compelling way. You have to have a little drama in your story, because every story has drama. We don't necessarily share it that way, but there's always drama. Oh my, and then this happened, kind of a thing. You want people to lean in to your story, like, listen up. We want to hear the next piece of it, to show how you were the superhero of that story. Let me say that again, to show how you were the superhero of that story. Everybody's a superhero. Everybody's got superpowers. You just have to pull a story where you can share it that way. When you're reading a great book and you're watching a great movie, it's the same thing. A good storyteller will have the reader or the viewer lean in and wait for that. We've all been in movies that 2 hours go by like in 2 minutes, because we're compelled, we're caught up in it. Like, what's the drama? Tell me more. We can't stop halfway through. You got to finish it up. You got to resolve it. You want to share stories that are that way. And so even if you only have 30 minutes, try to find a few stories where in a quick, like 1 to 2 minute kind of thing, you're sharing it in a pithy, but a compelling way to let them know, hey, I have these skills and these attributes from whatever they shared that seem like they are related. But again, make it short and make it, because 30 minutes is going to go by in 2 minutes, literally. And so you've got to get as much in without feeling stressed, without feeling pressure, and don't over talk. Know your stories, right? And be able to just share them and move on. if you can ask a follow-on question, I don't know, panel interviews and short ones are very hard to do that because everybody's got their question. If you
Right.
can answer the question and then say, okay, so that prompts me so-and-so, may I ask a follow-on? Maybe they'll let you and maybe it'll turn into more of a conversation, maybe.
I had one last week, and I think Vern, you had given me this tip to make sure to ask the question, or between Vern and Alki, about what does success look like in this organization. And so I kind of just changed a little bit to say, can each one of you give me an idea of, what I need, what attributes I need to be most successful in the job. And so it ended up turning the table so that I got a chance to ask each one of them a question in our short time together. And I just feel like we connected a little bit better because it gave them a chance, and it gave each of them a chance to talk about what was important to them. And then I could use that in my follow-up thank you letters. So it was a great tip. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, and were they consistent in their answers? If there were,
They were, except each one of them I could tell was a little bit challenged to make sure that what they said wasn't going to be the same thing that their other colleague had said.
yeah.
So it was informative, and they were, engaging. They were clearly engaged in making sure that they didn't repeat what somebody else had said.
Yeah. And again, asking questions as a candidate, asking questions in the interview is a skill that most people, they just think that, the interview is going to be one way. They ask questions and I answer them. And Shira has said this over and over again, ask questions during the interview. That makes it more interactive. That helps give you potentially information now that you can frame your answer more specifically or more powerfully based on the answer to the question that you've asked.
I love that Shira said lean in, and I know we're at the end of our call. That leaning in is you are now talking their language. You're talking not just what the job is about, you're talking about what the org is about. And it's not a guarantee that you'll get the job, but as having said in many interviews and having followed up with managers, and they tell me, oh, I really liked her. She's speaking our business, and she asked us some really, really good questions. And it's not just, let me just think of some questions I can come up with. I tell candidates a lot of times, if you've worked in the workforce, you've been in meetings, even though interviews can make you nervous and they bring anxiety, think of it as a meeting. Like, you imagine yourself already working with this team.
That's
You're
right.
5 months in, and
That's
this is like a regular Monday meeting about something, and you have a problem, you have a challenge, and you're coming, and the questions that they ask you, you're not just like being interviewed. You're in a meeting saying, hey guys, how can we fix this? Oh, you're asking me the question. Well, listen, before I answer that, are you talking about our East Coast team or our West Coast team? Okay, got it. And it's like a meeting conversation, and they won't look at you as a candidate. They'll start looking at you more as a finalist and somebody that we need to bring on board. And they'll be leaning in saying, wow, how did she know that? So you know what we're talking about.
Alki, thank you for saying that. I frequently over the years said to people, pretend the interview is your first day on the job. Or in that case, first week on the job, first month on the job, whatever. Yeah, that's going to be, they're just colleagues. You're just colleagues. You're sitting there having a chat. You're not in an interview. You're just having a chat to get to know each other and see how you can solve problems together. That's it.
That is so insightful.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's all that it is. And that's how they're feeling about it, right? Really.
My approach is going to be totally
Oh,
different.
good. That's great. Yay.
And also what you said about stories, I used to make them very general, but I'm going to kind of make them very specific now.
Yes, they need that. They need, in fact, I again bring another live example, had a situation with a candidate recently where the employer said, we really like so-and-so, but her stories were just too high level. They were just theoretical. That's what she said. They were theoretical. They weren't practical, grounded in real stories. Bring the real stories.
And the
Challenge,
most
action,
important part
benefit.
of the real story is the outcome, how you achieved, how
Yes.
you solved the
Yes.
problem.
Yes.
That's what the story leads up to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you don't have a metric, even if you don't say, well, increased it by 23%, even if you don't have that, still some sort of positive outcome. We saw increased member engagement. We saw increased employee morale or whatever it is. But definitely, yes, to Vern's point, yeah, make sure that there's an outcome. All right, so with that, we wish everybody a blessed day. And for those who are new on the call, we'll wrap up the formal part of this call. And then for anybody who wants to stay on the call, I offer a short prayer call for encouragement. Okay, so you're welcome to stay on if you like. Otherwise, we'll look forward to seeing everyone in 2 weeks. Remember, we're doing this every other week now. And you're welcome to bring colleagues and friends. We have lots of room on the Zoom call for lots of folks. Okay.
Shira, can I spend 10 seconds thanking you, Alki and Vern, for all your perspectives? This is very helpful. This is my second time joining this call, but I have been joining your other calls on the JCA, the job fairs and all that. So appreciate what you do.
Oh,
Absolutely.
it's our pleasure. We're here to
You're
help.
welcome. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
you.
Srini.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. Wonderful. All right, so we'll wish everybody a blessed day. And again, you're welcome to stay on for the prayer call.